And so you might have questions about what is it? Should we participate? Is it okay to participate if we participated in Spring to Action? Is it just about fundraising? So we wanted to invite one of our experts and one of our friends that you already know really well, Celeste Flores, who not only was project managing for Spring to Action, but she also works with Giving Tuesday. And so she is excited to share a little bit more about Giving Tuesday now and how our Alexandria nonprofits can play a role in this International Day. So I'm going to turn it over to Celeste. There will be time for questions, and if you have comments, feel free to put those in the chat. And we'll just go ahead and get started now. Celeste.
Thank you so much, Brandy, and thank you so much for everyone who's on the call. I first want to say congrats again for a very successful Spring to Action, and also a thank you for the work that you all are doing in Alexandria during this really difficult time. I am just grateful to have had the opportunity to work with all of many organizations and really getting to know the generosity that happens in Alexandria. It's pretty epic. So as Brandy said, I also work on the Giving Tuesday global team, and I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about what Giving Tuesday is and the Giving Tuesday Now effort, and then really be an idea sharing. I guess one of the first things I would say is that to lay the groundwork is that this is not something that you have to do. It doesn't maybe make sense for every organization, but this is an opportunity to maybe do something a little different or to try something new or test. But as Brandy mentioned, my name is Celeste, and I've been working with ACT on Spring to Action, and then now I do also work with Giving Tuesday, specifically with our communities who are doing a community-wide led campaign around Giving Tuesday. But I've also been, so I've been on the front lines and doing Giving Days, and then I did that in Austin, and then I also do work with so many communities across the country, from big and small communities who engage on Giving Tuesday. So I wanted to take a step back and talk a little bit about the movement itself. Giving Tuesday is really a global movement, and we're really focused on networked grassroots generosity, not just one day. We really want to focus on every Tuesday is a day that you do good. But we're also about all forms of giving. I think that's one of the misperceptions or misconceptions about Giving Tuesday, that it's a fundraising Tuesday, and it doesn't have to be. Of course, lots of organizations and communities use it that way, but there are so many ways to widen the definition of giving and generosity. We are a group of networked leaders, and so I work specifically with the U.S. community leaders, and we have about 200 plus communities across the country that do Giving Tuesday efforts, and we work with 70 countries as well. We have 70 country leaders. But again, this is all at the grassroots level. People and organizations participating in Giving Tuesday. Again, last Giving Tuesday was December the 3rd. And it was a huge day to generate billions of dollars in giving, but really it inspired people worldwide to volunteer, to do acts of kindness, to donate their time and their money and their goods. So it really is about more than fundraising. But we also recognize that our networks of leaders and movement builders are an incredible, powerful group to mobilize. And so as we, the Giving Tuesday team, watched the pandemic unfold and the amount of suffering and chaos and uncertainty, we all knew that this was an unprecedented moment. And so we thought about, how do we use our voice and our network for the good of the globe, really? And so we were really inspired by all of the spontaneous acts of generosity that were already happening around the globe. And we certainly saw people still connecting and yearning for that connection, helping and giving to their neighbors, and really having an opportunity to visualize and see the human spirit at work during this time. So we wanted to, and we also saw that giving obviously was happening. This is ultimate grassroots, right? The generosity that was happening at a grand scale. And so we thought about the best way Giving Tuesday could respond and what role we could play. And so we listened to our network of leaders. We reached out to all of our community campaigns and really talked about what could we do during this unprecedented time and be and respond. And we were trying to be very thoughtful. And we know that most people are used to Giving Tuesday happening in December, but we really balanced that with what the need was now and how we could use our voice and our network collectively. So Giving Tuesday Now was created. And again, this is happening on May the 5th. And it is in addition to our already planned Giving Tuesday in December, which will still happen on December 1st. But this was an opportunity for us to create a day and respond to a need that was really expressed by a lot of communities and leaders around the world that we work with. So why do this? Well, we honestly believe, and as you have been seeing, we believe at our core that generosity really does have that power to unite and heal communities in good times and in bad. And that's why we launched Giving Tuesday Now. Again, it's a new day that's on May 5th, but it is an emergency response to the need. We know that nonprofits are those essential workers in the communities. And we wanted to talk today to you about how could you leverage this day for your own activity. We know that, or your own needs. We know that that Alexandria has just had Spring to Action. And that's a day that you guys y'all really worked hard towards and raised a lot of money. But we also know that organizations can use this day differently. Again, it is every organization can choose how they want to or not participate in this day, but we brought it to you just to give you a baseline of information and choose and figure out if there's a way that your organization could activate on this day. Again, it doesn't make sense for every organization, and there's so many ways to participate. But as we think about ways to engage communities, we really are sharing also what we know about giving and giving trends. By virtue of the Giving Tuesday that happens every December, we gather a lot of data, and a lot of the decisions and messages that we spread is based on data. And we learn a lot about individual giving behavior and how that data on giving in moments like this helps us understand what to expect and maybe how to act accordingly. And what we know is that people are giving to organizations that they trust during a crisis situation. It's really important during this time, as you did during Spring to Action, remind people how important and how integral you are to this community. All organizations are on the front lines. I know many during Spring to Action were concerned if they weren't providing basic needs, what would be their message? And I think that there is a message to be had, and obviously it proved true during Spring to Action, is that all organizations are essential to a vibrant community, and we just needed to remind people of that. Current donors are likely to give to you because they know you, especially during a time like this. And what we know, obviously, is generous people are generous. That's kind of simple, a very simple statement, but it really is an opportunity. What we see with Giving Tuesday is that supporters are giving in multiple ways, not just donations. Of course, traditional Giving Tuesday Day does correlate to high donations, but I think it's because, or we know it's because it is an opportunity to give people many ways to give to the causes that they love. And that's what we'll talk a little bit about today, because again, I know that some of you are concerned about talking to your donors again about giving, and there might be an appropriate time. It might be appropriate for your organization if you needed to focus on fundraising, but there are so many ways to use this day. So we'll talk through a little bit of that. Because really, at the end of the day, we really are trying to meet our givers where they are. And this is just something you've seen a million times, your ladder of engagement, where you want to engage people where they are with your organization. And in order to do so, you really need to be offering the many ways to engage, meeting the needs of your people, moving them all the way from awareness to where they are becoming aware of your organization, all the way to becoming an advocate and an evangelist for your mission. And Giving Tuesday gives you that opportunity. Well, many times a year you can do this, but this is maybe an opportunity with May 5th that you can do this. So when engaging with specifically Giving Tuesday Now, and this is evident something that you already know with having Spring to Action, how you needed to message and how you need to message to be relevant during a time like this. So there are many ways, like I said, to engage, but I think at the end of the day, no matter what you decide, Each organization needs to craft a doable campaign that demonstrates relevance, creativity, and urgency in the moment. Of course, your tactics will be driven based on what you decide to do, whether it is fundraising or whether it is recruiting volunteers or whether it's, you know, an actual action of kindness or donation that you need. But no campaign really can survive in these and during these times unless it has these attributes. But we also completely recognize that you have so many constraints that you are working with right now, and that you are already constrained by the current situation, but you're also responding to high rate of need. And we definitely understand that. So you don't need to spin up some completely separate effort or new campaign for this. Maybe it is just augmenting and tethering to something that you are already doing, or using a new angle or a new approach. And so there is, you know, if you don't want to fundraise, or you're already in knee deep in a response effort, use Giving Tuesday Now to thank or deepen your connection with your supporters. And we'll talk a little bit more about those ways to do that. But I wanted to expand a little bit more on these 4 elements that I've listed here of things that you need to include to be a really great campaign. And whether it's for Giving Tuesday Now, or whether it is, you know, 6 months from now, for some other campaign that you might be doing. Relevance, again, is talking about what this world would be like, or what your community would be like without your work and your mission. Without your mission, be really clear and really honest about what you provide to this community, and, you know, balancing it with a powerful and engaging narrative that, you know, you are here, your work matters, and you are here for you know, the benefit of the community, and really just tying your mission to how it is relevant during these times. Authenticity, obviously being very real about your challenge. You can't, this is a very hard to read, and the slides will be provided to you after this call. But in this particular situation, this is a note to alumni from Wellesley, and talking about the significant cost transitioning to remote instruction and the decrease in revenue because of room and board refunds and the cancellation of summer programs, and making it very real and tangible, and putting numbers behind it for their donors when reaching out to them. Now, this is, again, a financial ask, but there are other ways to show the real challenge that you are up against, and being really clear. Again, that sense of urgency. We are, again, you guys are like the pros at this, because you also have already done this kind of messaging for Spring to Action. But providing people with a real sense of urgency and a now is incredibly critical. And obviously the creativity. As I've already mentioned, there's an opportunity here to be a thankathon, and maybe it's a thankathon for your Spring to Action donors who have given to you, sharing those stories of gratitude with those that invest in you from a year-round perspective. And we'll talk a little bit more about other ways, but these are just how some of these organizations have pivoted to create a narrative around their mission, and getting people in this situation, getting people active for a cause. So here's just a list, and this is not to be prescriptive. This is just to be from an idea generation standpoint of giving you ideas on how you can use this day. Is it kindness? Is it acts of kindness and encouraging certain acts of kindness that relate to your mission? Is it doing a thankathon? Is it providing community education? Of course, there's always direct fundraising, which we talked about. Is there an opportunity to amplify voices and stories of resilience? Or depending on what kind of organization you are, is there an opportunity for a virtual experience? So here are just a couple of examples of what some of the communities are doing around Giving Tuesday Now. Up here to your right hand side is from Austin. They are doing a generosity challenge on their social channels, asking people to do an act of generosity, share it using hashtags, and then tagging a friend and challenging them to do an act of generosity. On the bottom right, you see one of our GT Kids, our Giving Tuesday Kids. There's Giving Tuesday Kid ambassadors that, from a year-round perspective, engage in acts of good. And this is Chloe, one of our leaders, who is making masks, and masks for Giving Tuesday Now, and challenging other kids to do something good. In the middle top, we have our leader in Jackson, Tennessee, and they are repurposing or adding to their free libraries boxes of food, turning them into free food pantries. So this is just an idea of all the different ways that people are activating, again, not necessarily just raising money on this day, but raising awareness and sharing, generosity in general. So with that, I wanted to share a couple of things with you that maybe are helpful, not just for even Giving Tuesday Now, but just down the road. We are about sharing resources and ideas. And again, we only know that coming together, giving together is the most powerful way to give. So these will be available to you after this call. It is resources that we've provided to nonprofits, making it really easy for you to copy and share and post. It's super fast. There's ideas that you can adapt. And then also in this activation toolkit, there are 10 ways an organization can participate in the day that is not necessarily fundraising, if that is something that you want to consider. So with that, I will turn things over to Brandy. I'd love for Brandy to share what ACT will be doing and how they will be activating around Giving Tuesday Now. And then we just want to open this up for discussion and questions.
Great, thank you, Celeste. It's wonderful to hear a little bit more about Giving Tuesday. I think I still wasn't sure about all the different things that were available for us to do. So I love just the creativity that can go along with this day. One thing that I love that's try something new. And so this is something that we're going to do. As everybody knows, we are administering the ACT Now COVID-19 Response Fund. And one of the things that we want to do is provide an opportunity to say thank you to all of the people. I think there probably have been over 2,000 people who have given through this fund to support the nonprofits who are on the front lines during this pandemic. And so we want to provide an opportunity to hear from some of the leaders who are leading these organizations. So we are piloting a series of what we're calling Tuesday Talks. It's going to be every other week starting on Giving Tuesday Now, which is next Tuesday, May 5th. And it's just going to be like a 30 to 45-minute lunch and learn, where we're going to reach out to our donors and also just community members for them to hear about the great things that are happening through nonprofits, but also to become more aware of some of the challenges that our neighbors are experiencing. And so giving people an opportunity to act now, in the sense that the speakers will give them an opportunity to, what you can do, whether it's something that you can donate or think about or tell a neighbor, or something new that you're learning. So it's a pilot. We're going to try it. We always say we do things in pilots, but we're just excited to engage with our donors in a different way, not necessarily asking them for money, but just asking them to learn something new and to engage with us in a different way. So I know that some of my colleagues from ACT are on the call. If there's anything else that I'm missing about what we're trying to do, feel free to chime in. Okay, I have a question from Brittany. She asks, is GiveGab supporting Giving Tuesday through ACT for Alexandria? And she also says hello. Hi, Brittany. So we are not doing anything formal and coordinated through Giving Tuesday and GiveGab, but we are encouraging organizations. You can still use your Spring to Action page that's hosted by GiveGab. You can use this all year round. It's open. What we're doing is referring donors who ask us about organizations in Alexandria or want to learn a little bit more about ways that they can support nonprofits, to go find a group, go find a cause that they care about and see which groups are on the Spring to Action page. So I encourage you, you may want to keep your page updated, just knowing that there will be people kind of looking at your page throughout the year, just to learn a little bit more about who you are. Okay, other questions, whether it's in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Absolutely, thank you.
Or also, if you have ideas of what you're already planning and maybe want to bounce some ideas off of someone, you've got an expert in Celeste who has been talking to communities all over the country about what they're thinking about. I was really interested in some of the things related to kids. Okay, it looks like Emily. Hi, Emily. She says, do you have any sense locally if donors are experiencing donor fatigue? That is a good question.
Can I answer or provide some commentary on that? Because we get this question
please.
a lot. We get this question a lot, and I thank you, Emily, for that question. I absolutely can appreciate that, and I hear this from many communities, and the reality is just if we were to talk about donor fatigue in general, just a lot of the data that we have, when we have, I guess, 8 years of it, around donor behavior and response, and the idea of donor fatigue in general is not necessarily a misnomer, but I think it's all about messaging. And yes, donors get tired of hearing the same messaging and being asked it's too many times. There is certainly, I can appreciate that, but we really feel that if you have a good story and a visual, and it's visually appealing, and you're really giving people many ways to participate and give, that helps dissipate what we consider donor fatigue. Donor fatigue of, yes, sending the same type of messages with the same asks and monetary asks can result in what we, I guess, feel is donor fatigue. But at least the way we have seen the data around donor behaviors is level of creativity and messaging and visually appealing and giving people many ways to give. And that's really the reason and the predicate for Giving Tuesday in general is to mitigate what we consider donor fatigue. Locally, I can't necessarily speak to Alexandria completely, but at least in if we were to use Giving Spring to Action as a temperature, our goal was $2 million and we raised $2.5 million. And I know that it is an urgent time, but I think it's because also the nonprofits were doing really great messaging. So yes, if you're concerned about your specific donors, depending on how you've communicated with them throughout the year, asking them for another donation may not be the right approach here, but reaching out to them for a thankathon, I think, is a different story. But it's all about how you want to use this day. So at least just from a Giving Tuesday perspective, we feel that good stories with good visuals, and it is not does not exacerbate the issue of donor fatigue.
Great, thanks, Celeste. I think I would echo everything that you said. I think we were uncertain about what to expect with Spring to Action. I know many of you all were, and I know many people were just kind of overwhelmed at the response that they got from donors. So I think as people sit at home and they hear about all the things that are happening and they want to do something. So I think there are still ways that we can capture or we can incorporate their desire to do that.
Any other questions or ideas? And please consider unmuting yourself or just put it in the chat.
Hi guys, this is Emily. I have another question then, since others aren't asking. So we do not, can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay.
Thanks, Emily.
So I think just confidentially within this group, I think I have been struggling over this time period with just, I don't know how to put it, but just the fact that we are not like a healthcare provider, we're not providing food or shelter. And so we have definite real and tangible needs to keep our staff paid, and yet a lot of our typical programming we're not able to do right now. So we feel like we're in a bit of a holding pattern. So we had a lot of success with an initial fundraising campaign that we launched. We haven't like officially closed that. So I'm thinking about using Giving Tuesday as a way of kind of saying, here's a last chance to give. And we actually have someone who's offered a match campaign for May. So I think it'll fit really nicely into that. But I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions in terms of just how to be sensitive to the fact that we're not doing this, what sort of is traditionally believed to be essential services, but that we still really need support. Is that question clear? Sorry, it's kind of long-winded, but I'm just feeling a bit of guilt even. It's a very odd feeling.
I echo what you're saying, Emily, and we hear this a lot too. And to us, we feel that all organizations are essential. We're going to get out of this emergency state at some point, but it's important to understand what the picture will look like after this. Emily, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. What does your organization do?
Sorry, I'm with Phoenix Bikes, and we provide after-school programming to kids, teaching them how to fix bikes and ride safely.
Absolutely. And I think it's, so there's two things here that I think is at play. One, it's really talking about your message and how you might be doing things differently during this time. I think being really honest and clear. I think there is a way to talk about your mission that is about what, after we get out of what is considered a crisis mode, and yes, food and shelter is really, really important, right? And healthcare and masks it's all very important. But I think that there's still room for every organization to talk about their mission and how critical they are, and they're going to be to the after, right? I think it's something that resonated with me when we had a guest speaker on one of our calls for Spring to Action, where like 6 ways to message through this time. And I wrote them down, and I'm just going to share them really quick. Talk about what you are doing differently. Talk about how you might have changed your service right now due to this current situation. Show how you are staying on course no matter what, that sense of positivity. Emphasizing your mission, still even during this time when you feel guilty. Don't. And number 5 is how you might be helping the situation. Is there an adjustment to your services that might be a story that you can share? And acknowledging your role in this community, even during this time, but also how important it's going to be for after. So I definitely think that there is room for that. I know that nonprofits are worried about, feeling like guilty or there's competition, but you have a base of supporters, and them hearing from you is really important. I don't know, Brandy, if you have any other thoughts.
No, I think that you covered that. Emily, I'd also think, are there other ways that you are kind of changing your operations as a result? Like I think about, I've gotten a chance to visit your site and, working with the kids on their bikes, like bikes and being able to be outside is like life-giving. Or right. For people who need bikes to go to work because transportation is tricky, and I don't want to be on a bus or a metro. So I think about the ways that what you're doing can provide help in this time. I don't know if you're open for like essential things or how you're doing your operations, or even are you guys doing little tutorials online about how to fix maybe a flat tire? I know I have a flat tire right now, and that's why I can't ride my bike. But just thinking like, are there fun little things, creative ways that you can engage with your donors and your base about things that they might be interested or care about? Okay, I have another question from Karen. She asked, how do you sign up to be the presenting group on the Tuesday Talks? Tell us more about what you have in mind for these talks beyond giving background on what the nonprofit does. Karen, that's a great question. So we are reaching out to nonprofits related to different fields or different areas that are being addressed throughout the pandemic. So one around food and hunger, another one around health, housing and homelessness, early care and education, and racial equity. And so we're reaching out to folks who have received grants through the Act Now Fund. Keep in mind, this is a new idea and I haven't done all of my outreach yet. So stay tuned. You might be getting a call from me, everyone on the call. But it's, yeah, just a chance for people to hear about what the organizations are doing, what they're seeing on the front lines, how they might be partnering with other organizations, some of the challenges that they might be experiencing, and also just some of the good kind of stories. We want to hear some good news about things that are happening. And so an opportunity to kind of hear a little bit of everything. And so it'll be kind of an interview style with a host. Will most likely be Heather Peeler, our CEO, and then maybe two nonprofits who are kind of talking and then opening it up for questions from the audience. Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Oh,
I think somebody was trying to talk.
Oh, this is Karen. I was just thanking you for the explanation. That's helpful.
oh, sure. No problem, Karen. Thank you for the question. Okay. And last call for any questions or comments, anything that this is kind of sparking in you as you think about ideas for what you can do. Okay, well, I'm going to close us out. Celeste, do you have any other kind of parting comments?
I don't, but what I'm going to say is how grateful I am, and really, really excited. I love Alexandria so much. And so anything that I can do to help spur on more generosity, I'm here. And I'm going to make sure that Brandy has all of the tools that we could share with you guys. And I'll just throw something in Slack real quick. I mean, not Slack, sorry, this group chat, a link so you can get to the resources quickly. But also I'll make sure that Brandy can send out a follow-up with the slides and anything else that's helpful.
That's great. Thank you, Celeste. And thank you all for joining us. It's just really nice to connect. And even if I can't see your faces, I can see your names, and for your sweet notes. And yeah, it's just nice in a time where we can't be in person to have opportunities to connect online. So thank you all. It looks like the link is there. So go ahead and take a look in the chat. Click on it so you can save it. And then I'll also send out an email to everyone on this call with the recording, with the slides, and with that link as well.
Thank y'all so much.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. Enjoy your lunch. Maybe you're eating while we were talking.